The Kansas Supreme Court recently overturned the cap on damages in Kansas. This video is a brief explanation of the effect of that decision, and it also provides you a little bit of background of what's going on behind the scenes with these type of cases, not just in Kansas, but throughout the United States. So this case, called the Hilburn case, can be found, the actual case opinion itself can be found on our website, as well as the oral arguments if you care to listen to it, but it's almost 50 minutes. But here's the brief explanation. At the time of the injury to Diana Hilburn, there was a cap of $250,000 on any recovery, meaning no matter what the jury awarded, whether if it was above $250,000 on a personal injury action, you were capped at $250,000. You would never get more than that. So if the jury awarded you $300,000, $400,000, $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever, the judge would knock it down to $250,000. Well, she got a verdict of about $300,000, and of course it was immediately knocked down to $250,000. She took the case up with her attorneys to the Supreme Court of Kansas. So the Kansas Supreme Court said, look, under the Constitution of Kansas, the Kansas State Constitution, there is a right to trial by jury, and that right to trial by jury is inviolate, meaning it's supposed to be safe, it's supposed to be not harmed. And they said because of that, you have to listen to what the jury says and go by what the jury says. Therefore, when they awarded damages of $300,000, they should not have been allowed to arbitrarily cap it. And therefore, this right to trial by jury means you have to listen to what the jury says. And therefore, they struck down the cap. And they said also, from the legal standpoint, that the jury decides issues of fact, and that includes the amount of the damages. So if you think about it, it makes sense too, because what good is a right to trial by jury if once the jury makes the decision, you say, thank you very much for your decision, but now we're going to wad it up and throw it in the trash can. And we're going to arbitrarily put these parameters on it that we, the legislature, makes up. Because you think about it, also, what we've got going on is we've got a cap on any severe or serious injuries. So basically, if you've got a small case or a frivolous case, you can bring that and you can get your damages for that. If you've got $5,000, $500, $50,000, whatever, that's fine, you can have it. But if you've been paralyzed or you've had a back surgery that puts you out of work, if you've been blinded, if you've been burned over 20% or 80% of your body, and you've got severe pain and suffering, you can't recover that. And so this cap that we've been talking about is a cap on pain and suffering also. And I should mention that. You can still, and you could before, get your lost wages and get any kind of medical bills, any kind of hard economic damages. But under the cap, they capped pain and suffering before this case. Pain and suffering, or legally what's called non-economic damages. That's the fancy word for it in the law. But what they've said, again I think rightfully, is that the jury's decision should stand. And you think about it from another standpoint too. What these judges have been saying when they say the cap is okay, as they do in many states, what they've said is, we're going to listen to the jury in some situations, but if it takes the money, no, we're not going to listen to them. And think about it this way too. They say that it's okay for a jury to decide if someone should be put to death. You can put somebody to death, jury, we'll listen to that. But if you're going to take money from big business, no, you don't know what you're doing. How can you say that with a straight face? And so now I'm getting into not just the effect of this, which is, again, it takes the cap on pain and suffering away and allows the jury to make that decision. What they've said is the jury decision will stand. But what we're now getting into, though, as we talk about this, is there is a real struggle in the political system and in the court system with some politicians trying to get people on the court that are pro-business over the rights of the people, over our constitutional rights. We have a constitutional right to trial by jury, and they would love to get away with that. Do away with that, I should say. Do away with it. Because if they can do that, then they can put these arbitrary constraints on that allow businesses to make more money over the rights of the people. But we're supposed to have this right to trial by jury, a constitutional right. So, bottom line is, in the state of Kansas now, if you have an award that allows you to receive pain and suffering or non-economic damages. It is not capped arbitrarily by the legislature, by the state, in favor of these big businesses. Now, it should also be noted, though, that this is just to the right on personal injury actions. Potentially, I would think medical malpractice also being a personal injury type of action, but it does not apply to wrongful death or punitive damages. Because when the Kansas state constitution was written, they did not write in for punitive damages and they did not write in for wrongful death. Those were created statutorily later, so the cap would still apply on wrongful death cases and caps could apply on punitive damage cases. But I think they made a good decision. Some states go the other way. Some states go the way of Kansas. Again, it becomes an issue of the right of the people to have a trial by jury and all that means versus arbitrary constraints to keep down damages for people who've been severely injured in favor of big business. And, I'm not, you decide what you want on your personal opinion, but that's just the facts as I see it. Also, on this website, there is a less than 2 minute clip of the rebuttal by the plaintiffs in the oral argument of this case. I think it really sums up kind of what I've been saying, only a lot more succinctly, and you might want to watch that also. Thank you for watching, and I hope this provided some insight into the overturning of the caps in Kansas and also why this is happening the way it's happening. Thank you.